Are you ready for your bedtime story? Tonight, we're reading from the Tall Book of Nursery Rhymes. Let's see where we are. Let's see. Our first story tonight is called The City Mouse and the Country Mouse. There was once a happy little country mouse who lived in a big wheat field. In the summer, she feasted on grains of wheat or on bits of bread from the farmers' lunch boxes. When the weather grew cold, she moved into the farmhouse and picked up bits of cake and bread and cheese, which the cook dropped on the kitchen floor. These she stored away in her little mouse hole in the attic until she had a good supply laid in for the winter. Now one day, during the winter, the little country mouse cousin, a city mouse, came to visit her. When they had chatted for a while, the little country mouse took her visitor to see her attic pantry. Proudly she showed her the mound of cheese bits, the heaps of bread and cake crumbs, and the neat piles of nuts and dried peas. But when the city mouse had eaten a hearty dinner, she wiped her whiskers daintily and said, "You poor thing, so is this the way you live, on leftovers dried up in the attic? Come with me to the city and I will show you a real feast." The country mouse immediately felt rather ashamed of her simple home, so she quietly went along with the city mouse to visit her. The city mouse led the way into a huge brick house, up a great staircase and onto a dining room. The rich people who lived in the big house with the city mouse were just having dinner, so the two little mice hid behind the door. "Keep very still," said the city mouse. "When they leave the table, we can have all the food that's left." The eyes of the little country mouse grew big and round at that, for she had never seen so much food in her whole busy life. So she sat very still until, with a scuffling of feet and scraping of chairs, the big people left the table. "Come on," squeaked the city mouse. Peeking cautiously to the right and to the left, she led the way across the room, up onto a chair, and from the chair onto the table, with the country mouse scampering along behind her. The country mouse took a long look around her at the table, still crowded with good things, and sighed a deep, heavy, happy sigh. "This is wonderful," she said, and taking a big bite out of one piece of a beautiful cheese. "They live just like a prince." She had scarcely finished squeaking when, with a snarl, a cat pounced up on the table. After her came the cook, shouting and waving a big spoon, and onto the room bounded the two dogs, barking fiercely. Then there was a terrible row. In the midst of it, the two mice skittered down to the floor and dodged into a handy hole. "We'll wait until all this quiet goes along and again, and we will go back and we'll get some more," whispered the city mouse. But her country cousin shook her head timidly and firmly. "We'll wait until it's quiet again, and then I'll go home as fast as I can. You're welcome to all the food you can get, my friend. As for me, I prefer my dry crusts and my peaceful attic." Are you asleep, dear? Are you ready for your bedtime story? Tonight we're reading from The Tall Book of Nursery Tales. And tonight, our story is The Three Bears. In a neat little cottage in the midst of deep woods, there once lived 3 bears. One was a great big daddy bear, one was a middle-sized mama bear, and one was a wee little baby bear. One morning, Mother Bear made a big batch of porridge for breakfast. She filled a great bowl for Daddy Bear, a middle-sized bowl for her middle-sized self, and a wee little bowl for Baby Bear. Then they all went out for a walk in the woods while the porridge was cooling. That same morning, a little girl named Goldilocks had gone for a walk by herself. She'd gone much further than she could have and found herself in the deep woods where she had never been before. All at once, she saw through the trees a neat little cottage. I wonder who lives there, way off in the woods, she thought. She knocked on the door, but no one came, so she walked right in. There was no one in the living room, but it looked very comfortable. So Goldilocks decided to sit down to rest. First she sat in a great big daddy bear chair. "This is much too hard for me," she said. Then she sat in the middle-sized mama bear chair. "This is much too soft for me," she said. Then she sat in the little wee baby bear chair. "This is just right," she said. But as she sat down, it broke all to pieces. So Goldilocks went on until she found the 3 bowls of porridge set out to cool. It smelled very good, so she decided to taste it. First she tasted the porridge in the great big bowl for Daddy Bear. "This is too hot for me," she said. Then she tasted the porridge in the middle-sized Mother Bear bowl. "This is too cold for me," she said. Then she tasted the porridge in the wee little Baby Bear bowl. "This is just right," she said, and she ate it all up. Then Goldilocks went upstairs. There was no one there either, but the beds looked very inviting. So she decided to take a nap. First she tried the big Daddy Bear bed. "This is too hard for me," she said. Then she tried the middle-sized Mama Bear bowl. "This is too soft for me," she said. Then she tried the wee little Baby Bear bed. "This is just right," she said. So she curled up and she fell asleep. Soon the 3 bears came home from their walk. They could soon see that someone had been in their house. "Someone's been sitting in my chair," said the Father Bear in his great big voice. "Someone's been sitting in my chair," said the Mother Bear in her middle-sized voice. "Someone's been sitting in my chair," said the Baby Bear in a little voice, "and it's broken all to pieces." The 3 bears looked around at the bowls of porridge that they had set out to cool. "Someone's been tasting my porridge," said the Father Bear in his great big voice. "Someone's been tasting my porridge," said the Mother Bear in her middle-sized voice. "Someone's been tasting my porridge," said the Baby Bear in his wee little voice. "And they've eaten it all up." Now the 3 bears hurried upstairs. "Someone's been sleeping in my bed," said the Father Bear in his great big voice. "Someone's been sleeping in my bed," said the Mother Bear in her middle-sized voice. "Someone's been sleeping in my bed," said the Baby Bear in her wee little voice, "and here she is." Just then Goldilocks woke up. When she saw the great big Father Bear and the middle-sized Mother Bear and the wee little Baby Bear all standing there looking at her, she sprang out of the wee little bed, hurried down the stairs, and out the door before the bears could turn around. Then she ran and ran until she was home. And never again did she wander off into the deep woods alone. And never again did she see the neat little cottage of the three bears. That's the end of the story. Are you asleep yet? Did Grandma's hot chocolate warm you up? Good. This is the tall book of nursery rhymes. This used to be Grandma's when she was a little girl. It's very old. And here is the first picture. And the first story is called Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, in a cottage, on the edge of a deep woods, lived a little girl and her mother. The little girl always wore a little red cape her grandmother had made for her, with a little red cover to cover her curls. So the neighbors called her Little Red Riding Hood. One morning, Red Riding Hood's mother put a loaf of crusty brown bread and some spiced meat and a bottle of red wine into a basket and said to her, "I want you to take these goodies to your grandmother who is sick. But be sure that you go straight along the woods path and do not stop to play or talk to any strangers." Little Red Riding Hood promised to be careful. She put on her little cape and hood, took the little basket, and off she started. She loved the walk through the shady green woods where all the flowers and the birds and the little animals lived. But today she did not stop to play with any of her forest friends. She kept right on the path. Suddenly, from behind a big oak tree, a great gray wolf appeared. He was an evil-looking fellow, but he smiled at Little Red Riding Hood and said politely, "Good morning, my dear. And where are you going this fine day?" My grandmother is sick, and I am going to her little cottage in the woods to take her this basket from my mother. And my mother says I am not to stop and play along the way or speak to strangers. Always obey your mother, my dear, said the wolf, eyeing Little Red Riding Hood himself hungrily. Now I do not want to delay you, since you have a long way to go, so good day. With a little bow, the wolf disappeared among the trees, and Red Riding Hood skipped along toward her grandmother's house. The wicked wolf, meanwhile, had taken a shortcut through the woods, and he reached the grandmother's cottage long before Little Red Riding Hood. "Who is there?" called the grandmother, who was still in bed. "It is I, Little Red Riding Hood," said the wolf, trying to make his voice sound soft and sweet. "Come in, my dear," said the grandmother. "Just pull the latchstring." So the wolf pulled the latchstring and slipped into the grandmother's cottage, and he ate her up in one big bite. Then he put on her nightgown and her nightcap and climbed into her bed. He was just pulling the sheet up over his nose when Little Red Riding Hood rapped at the door. "Who is there?" called the wolf, trying to make his voice sweet and quavery. "It is I, Little Red Riding Hood," said the little girl. "Come in, my dear," said the wolf. "Just pull the latchstring." So Red Riding Hood went in and put her little basket down on the table. "Now come closer, my dear," said the wolf. "Why, Granny, what big ears you have!" cried Little Red Riding Hood, walking closer. "The better to hear you with, my dear," said the wolf. "And Granny, what big eyes you have!" cried Little Red Riding Hood. "The better to see you with, my dear," said the wolf. "And Granny, what big teeth you have!" "The better to eat you with," snapped the wolf, springing at Little Red Riding Hood. Calling for help, she ran out of the cottage and straight into the arms of a sturdy woodcutter. He stepped into the cottage and with one blow of his axe killed the wicked wolf. He cut him open, and out stepped Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother, none the worse for her fright. She kissed Little Red Riding Hood warmly and thanked the woodcutter for saving their lives. Then, after all had a nice lunch from the goodies in Little Red Riding Hood's basket, the woodcutter took the little girl home. There has never been another wolf seen in that forest. But Little Red Riding Hood takes no chances. She keeps right on the path, does not stop to play along the way and never speaks to strangers. Are you asleep, dear?